Serie A is full of high quality players, exciting young talent, and plenty of incredible value. So in this video, we're going to take a look at 8 players in Italy's top flight who many of Europe's clubs should be monitoring over both the January and summer transfer window. I'm going to explain each of my choices using both personal opinion and some data, compare them to some similar players, and see some systems that they might potentially perform well in across Europe, and of course discuss how much they might cost. We're going to start with a player who I've mentioned on the channel before, and that's Andrea Colpani. Now he's a 24-year-old Italian attacking midfielder, has been called up to the Italian national team but has not yet been capped, plays as one of the two 10s in Monza's 3-4-2-1, and is the top scorer for them so far this season with 6 goals and 1 assist. And that means that he's been involved in just under half of Monza's goals throughout the whole of this season, about 44%. And he's been an integral part of Monza's quite impressive form so far in Serie A under Raffaele Palladino. And when we look at his stats so far this season, he is in the 89th percentile across Europe's top 5 leagues when compared to attacking midfielders and wingers for non-penalty XG per 90. That's 0.38. And that really shows how important he is to Monza's team and how well he does perform when box crashing, when carrying the ball into the box and eventually finishing. He's also a good finisher, shown in that he's overperformed his XG by just over 2 so far this season and has an impressive engine. He plays large amount of Monza's minutes and is a vital part of their press and their ability to counter when it presents itself. So we'll use transfer-marked estimated values throughout this video, and Colpani's valued at 15 million euros. So you'd imagine that between 20 to 25 million euros would maybe get Monza to consider to sell, but they do have the security of him having recently signed a new contract, so they're in no real rush to do that at the moment. But I think Colpani would be really suited in a team who plays with an advanced 10 or more than one advanced 10. So you look at someone like Aston Villa, who play in a 4-4-2 with 2 wide 10s. I think that would really suit him. He's a good presser, he's a good carrier, and I think would be a really good asset to a team at sort of Villa's level, and I think he could come at really good value. Next up is Armand Lauriente. Now he's a left-sided winger, 25 years old, currently playing for Sassuolo. Now Sassuolo aren't doing that great so far this season. They had quite a bit of squad turnover in the summer, most notably the loss of Davide Fratesi to Inter and Maxime Lopez, who went out on loan to Fiorentina. It's an okay season, but I think based on the glimpses that we've seen from Lauriente, both in small parts this season and mainly last season, I think he's still an outstanding player in Serie A and could be accessible at quite good value for a lot of upper to mid to upper European clubs. So when we look at Lauriente's performances so far this season, he's on 4 goal contributions, 1 goal, 3 assists. He's played in every game so far this season, and I think you can take this season as it is, Sassuolo not being very good, but when we look at Lauriente's stats over the last year, you can see that his strengths really do lie in his dribbling and his carrying capabilities. And that's shown in the fact that he has 4.7 progressive carries per 90 and 2.4 successful take-ons, both of which put him in the 79th percentile across Europe's top 5 leagues with wingers. And it definitely is a key strength of his to be able to beat his man. And I'd liken him to somebody like Kara Matoma. He's quite a capable winger in that department, but given the fact that Sassuolo haven't been doing that great so far this season, his stats have been affected that way, and I think he could be a really useful asset to a really quite high level European team. And Lauriente really showed that quality last season. He had 13 goals and assists in total, scoring his 6 non-penalty goals from 3.9 XG, which is a good overperformance, about 2, which is a positive thing that you want to see in the stats when you look at an attacking player. Both Lauriente's progressive passes and progressive carries were higher last season, but he's taking more shots per 90 this season with a similar XG per 90. He's just struggling to score in a team that we've said aren't playing brilliantly at the moment, and I think those stats really do show that there is a capable talent there, and if he was to move on to somewhere else, I think he would perform to the similar level that we saw from him last season. And clubs are always looking for players that can beat players in a 1v1 situation, and Lauriente is really good at that. When you consider teams that maybe sometimes struggle in a low block, Lauriente would be a really good player to have in those situations where you need to break down a team. Lauriente is valued at 16 million euros, a slight decrease on the summer when he was valued at 18. Presents really good business for a club looking for a capable carrying winger, somebody who can beat somebody 1v1 and get a cross in, and those are assets that lots of Europe's top clubs are looking for, and I think he really does present a good opportunity for a team to not spend that much money on a winger and get quite a capable asset to be on that left-hand side. Now moving on to our next player, arguably one of the most exciting young talents in Serie A, that is Lazar Samardzic. Now he's a 21-year-old Serbian midfielder currently at Udinese, has 4 goal contributions so far this season, 2 goals, 2 assists, and he's into his 3rd full season at Udinese and is now a regular starter. He started 13 of the 18 games so far this season. And Samardzic is really improving nicely in an Udinese team who has constant churn of both players and managers, but he's really cemented his place in this team. Typically in a 3-5-2, he plays on the left-hand side of the midfield 3 between the wing-backs, and he's really really shone in that position so far this season. And not just considering his assists numbers and his shots numbers, as you can see, and his shot creating actions, but his successful take-ons and his carries are really impressive. For somebody who's also quite tall, he's 6 foot plus, his ability with the ball at his feet is really, really something to see. And I'd suggest you watch some highlight clips of Samardzic because he's really impressive. I'd liken him to somebody a little bit like Szoboszlai. He's really good with the ball at his feet, quite a tall guy, quite hard to knock off the ball, but he's really impressive with his long-range shooting and general creative output that he has from the left-hand side of a midfield three, which is typically where Szoboszlai might... Well, he sometimes plays to the right, but you get what I mean. He's in a similar sort of role to Szoboszlai. And with his shot-creating actions and his successful take-ons, both in the 97th and 96th percentile respectively, Samardzic is such an impressive talent, and I really do see lots of Europe's clubs really vying for him over the next sort of 6 to 12 months. Samardzic is a really promising player who's improved a lot throughout his time at Udinese, and I think could make that next step to a slightly more elite club, like we saw with Szoboszlai in the summer. I think that could be coming for Samardzic very soon. Valued at about 20 million euros and constantly being linked to big clubs in Europe like Napoli that I've seen recently, I think Samardzic will be moving on in the not too distant future for a fee upwards of 30 to 35 million euros, and is definitely somebody that a lot of Europe's top clubs will be keeping an eye on. Next up is a defender who has the best Italian name I think you'll ever hear, and that is Alessandro Buongiorno. He's a 24-year-old left-sided centre-back for Torino and is a recent Italian international with 2 caps. He's 6'3" and part of a Torino side who have been quietly consistent in their 10th place finishes over the last 2 seasons and are also following the same trend this season as they're currently in 10th. He's been the captain of the side recently and has played at the centre of a back three this season and also sometimes on the left of the back three in Torino's typical 3-5-2s, 3-4-3 sort of formation that they have going on a lot of the time. He became an important player for Torino last season, playing 34 of their 38 games, and is now into his 4th season with the club and is becoming one of Serie A's top centre-backs, alongside Per Schurz, his centre-back partner, who sadly got injured at the start of the season, who would have been on this list had that not happened. But Buongiorno is definitely on the radar of a lot of Europe's top clubs, including what I've seen from rumours including Chelsea, Juve, Inter and Milan, just to name a few. He's also quite a big attacking threat from corners. His non-penalty goals are in the 86th percentile for centre-backs, which is really quite high. He's in the 95th percentile for interceptions, so his defensive capabilities and awareness in that department is also really high. High for tackles, high for assists, surprisingly, progressive passes received as well, so it does show that he is also sometimes the main aim when Torino put the ball in the box from corners. But I think he's definitely a very capable and confident centre-back who will be moving up to a Champions League club in the near future if he decides to leave the club that he's been at for a long time and been captaining them. He's valued at 22 million euros. I'd imagine that anything north of 30 to 35 million euros would tempt Torino into selling, which in my opinion is really good value for the buying club in this market. But he's also recently signed a new contract as well, so that brings that into the conversation, which is why that price is probably a little bit more inflated than some teams might want, but I still think he presents really good value. Next up is a goalkeeper I have mentioned before in my Monza video about Raffaele Palladino, and that is Michele Di Gregorio. Now, he's a 26-year-old Italian goalkeeper in his 2nd season in Serie A with Monza, and he's also pushing for a place in the Italian national team alongside Vicario and Donnarumma. Di Gregorio is one of the standout goalkeepers in Europe so far this season. He is 5th for post-shot expected goals plus or minus, so that's the expected goals that he's saved over what's expected. Overperforming by 5.6 so far this season. He's also 7th for save percentage in the European top 5 leagues for goalkeepers at 82%, which puts him in the 96th percentile. And Di Gregorio is not just an effective shot stopper, he's also quite good with the ball at his feet, shown in the fact that he has a high number of touches per 90, around 44, which puts him in the 89th percentile, and has a comparably quite short distance of the goal kicks that he takes, which shows that he does have the capability to play those short passes out of defence. There really is a lot to like about Michele Di Gregorio. I would compare him similarly to what happened with Vicario in the summer, moving to Spurs from Serie A for quite a low fee and really performing quite well at that level. And I think Vicario could do exactly the same and slot into a really top level team. And valued at 12 million euros, anything around the 20 million euro to 25 million euro mark would present really good value for a club who'd be getting a first choice starting goalkeeper for, really good money in the current market. And I think he presents really good quality and really good value at the moment. Now, the next player on this list has only made 11 Serie A appearances so far in his career, but I think he's really exciting and definitely is a prospect that a lot of top clubs will be looking at, and that's Michael Kayode. Now, Coyote is a right back who is a graduate of the Fiorentina Academy and has just broken into the squad after the injury of Dodo and is performing really, really well. Coyote is an Italian youth international and, as we said, only has 11 Serie A appearances to his name, but has already shown the quality that he has. Coyote can play either side of the back four at right back and left back and has been particularly impressive with his defensive capabilities so far this season and has played in every game of Fiorentina's 8-match unbeaten run so far. That includes the last 3 games in which they've kept 3 clean sheets. So when Coyote joined the first team in the summer, within 3 months he was offered a new contract, and that really kind of says all you need to know about his prospect in the future and his quality that he's already showing. His stats aren't massively impressive, but given the fact that he's only played 912 minutes over the last year, it's quite hard to really tell too much from that. But I think his defensive capability already really shows in the fact that he's 70 plus percentile for both clearances, blocks and tackles, and his passes attempted and passes completed and successful take-ons are all in the 70 plus percentile, and that's quite impressive in a Fiorentina team who like to keep the ball a lot. He's already shown the quality that he does have to be in that more possession-based side. Coyote is currently valued at 12 million euros, but given the potential that he has and what we've seen in the few Serie A appearances that he's made, I think Fiorentina would arguably say that 20 to 25 million euros plus would be what they would even consider for selling their most promising prospect. I think he'll be at Fiorentina for a while, given that he signed a recent contract. He signed a contract recently, but there's definitely potential there that European clubs will definitely be monitoring. Now, the penultimate pick in this list is a winger who's currently on loan from Juventus at Frosinone, and that is Matheus Sule. Now, Sule is definitely one of Serie A's breakout stars so far this season. He's a 20-year-old Argentinian winger who has 7 goals and 1 assist so far this season for Frosinone and plays in the right 10 role of their 3-4-2-1 formation, or sometimes on the right of a 3-4-3. An all-round attacking talent with the work rate that's really needed to thrive in a newly promoted team in Serie A. And I think he's really surprised a lot of people this season, none more so than his parent club Juventus, who might look to recall or even cash in on Sule in January. And when we look at Sule's stats, apart from his assist numbers, his creative, his goal scoring and his defending numbers are really positive and show a really promising talent. Given that Sule's in the 90 plus percentiles for shot creating actions, progressive passes, successful take-ons, and has really high interceptions, tackles and blocks numbers, you're seeing an all-round talent who's really working well and working hard in this Frosinone team. And I think Sule's most impressive aspect of his time at Frosinone so far this season has been his carrying and his 1v1 ability. He plays with no fear and is really a joy to watch. His 1v1 trickery and his feints and his skills to get past players are really impressive, and it's just a lovely highlights reel to watch if you get the chance to watch one. But at 5'10", Sule's also more than capable in central areas against opposing midfielders, using that trickery and also using his strength to help drive past players. Valued at 25 million euros, Sule won't come cheap and could do with a full season at Frosinone or with a slight step up from that sort of level. But based on the current form, I think he'd be worth a punt for a lot of Europe's top clubs. He has the ability to take on players and to carry, and we've said that's a really important aspect that a lot of top clubs are looking for, and I think he'd be a good option. Now, the last player on this list also happens to be the most expensive, and I think will be a target for a lot of top clubs in the summer, and that is Ederson. Now, Ederson is a 24-year-old Brazilian centre midfielder at Atalanta. He's made the left-sided centre midfield spot his own this season in Atalanta's 3-4-1-2 formation, playing in every game so far. He came into Atalanta's first team after the loss of both Remo Freuler and Matteo Pessina at the start of last season and hasn't really left since. Ederson is a physically dominant midfielder who at 6'1" is defensively astute, but also very capable with the ball at his feet, shown in his 1.31 successful take-ons per 90. And with 4 goals and 1 assist so far this season, that's really good return for a player on the left side of a double pivot. But where Ederson really shines is in his defensive capability. He completes 2.6 tackles per 90, 1.6 interceptions and 1.9 blocks. And they are all 80 plus percentile stats, which show a really capable defensive midfielder across Europe's top 5 leagues. Ederson's attacking and defensive contributions are clear to see. He's a really important part of Atalanta's team, and he's being watched by all, if not most, of Europe's top clubs, and I expect him to be one of Atalanta's next top sales. Ederson's valued at 27 million euros, and I think will present really decent profit for Atalanta if they decide to cash in. They spent 21 million euros on him in 2022, and I'd imagine that 40 to 45 million plus might push them to consider selling. And with Europe's elite clubs always looking for defensive midfielders who are capable with the ball at their feet, I think Ederson will be rumoured to go to loads of top clubs, most notably United, who really need somebody in that position. And I think he'd perform well wherever he went. I'd like to see him stay in Serie A for a little bit longer, but I think he'll be moving on very soon and will present, some would say, quite good value at the 40 million euro mark, particularly if he was to go to the Premier League. And I think he would really fit in any sort of quality of team. I think he really is that good. So those are my 8 players that might be moving on or will be monitored by lots of Europe's top clubs over the next sort of 6, 12, 18 months. What other players do you think I might have missed from Serie A, or you think might be on the move in that time period? Let me know if you'd like to see a similar video on like another league, so La Liga, Bundesliga, etc, etc. But thank you very much for watching this video. Really appreciate it. Like if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you'd like to, and I'll see you in a video very soon.